He had barely left before Zane was making his way deeper into the dragon prison. He needed to get stronger and fast. His recent encounter had shown him just how deadly the world outside the Five Spirit set could be. Since absorbing the lightning fragments, the cracks on his seat of vital energy had multiplied, pulsing with barely contained power. And the sky thunder of the dark domain, the technique he'd unlocked from the Book of the Divine Thunder, was more potent than he'd imagined. If only the book contained more than just the palm of lightning. Still, he had what he had, and he would master it. Inside the dragon prison, the air crackled with restless energy. Storm clouds gathered overhead, spitting arcs of silver lightning that slammed into Zane, drawn to him as if by an unseen magnet. Each bolt left him singed, his clothes little more than smoldering rags. But Zane endured. He could feel the lightning channeling, flowing into him, drawn towards the lightning tree in his elixir field. He opened his hands, a look of fierce determination on his face. Arcs of dark silver energy danced between his palms, a living reflection of the storm raging around him. Time seemed to bend around him. Days blurred into nights, marked only by the ceaseless roar of thunder and the smell of ozone. He trained relentlessly, pushing himself to the brink of exhaustion and beyond. He would be ready for Zuri. Finally, the day of the duel arrived, the murmur of voices growing louder, resolving into individual conversations. Zane, flanked by a worried Lily and an amused Xander, could feel the buzz of anticipation as he approached the Azure Dragon Academy's arena.
Why won't you listen? You're good, Zane, but Zuri is on a different level. And even if by some miracle you beat him, there's still Yanni. What am I supposed to tell the Deputy Hall Chief if you get yourself crippled?
Zane understood her concern. With his talent for alchemy, with the Hall of Elixirs behind him, he had a bright future, a safe future. But safety wasn't what drove a true martial artist.
Senior Lily, I appreciate your concern, but my mind is made up. I will face Zuri, and I will win.
Before Lily could launch another tirade, Xander placed a calming hand on her arm.
Let him go, Lily. Let him learn. Besides, a little setback might be just what he needs to focus on his true calling. Alchemy.
Lily sighed, knowing she'd lost this battle.
Fine, go. But be careful. I don't want to explain to the Deputy Hall Chief why our most promising alchemist is laid up with broken bones.
Zane, hiding a grin, hurried away before she could change her mind. He spotted Penelope watching the exchange with a bemused expression.
Mind if I tag along? I'd hate to miss the show.
By all means, try to keep him in one piece if you can.
The arena was packed. Word of Zane's challenge, of his arrogant claim to best two of the Azure Dragon Academy's elite, had spread like wildfire. Some had come to see the arrogant newcomer put in his place, others hoping, against all odds, to witness an upset.
That's him, Zane. He's just a nobody. 9th stage of body tempering, and he thinks he can take on Zuri? Arrogant fool.
Isn't that Penelope with him? The Southern King's granddaughter? What's she doing mixed up with someone like him?
You'll be singing a different tune when 10 moves Yanni steps up. Heard no one but Carson, the top ranker in the Azure Dragon Academy, can last 10 moves against him.
Zane ignored the chatter. He had eyes only for his opponent, who stood at the center of the arena, a mocking smile on his face.
Zuri, you owe me a rematch for what you did, what you sent Greg to do.
Zane, you certainly are full of surprises, bold, I'll give you that. But you seem to be laboring under a misconception. You're not the one calling the shots here.
Zuri's eyes flicked to the spirit-controlling ring on Zane's finger. He'd put the pieces together. The missing disciples. The ring. He assumed Zane had ambushed Zeke for the ring, for the panther it contained. He never considered that Zane could have actually killed them. Zuri's expression hardened.
And today you'll pay for your arrogance.
He closed his fists. The air around him shimmered as his vital energy surged, his skin taking on a faint bronze sheen.
The Copper Wall. I heard Zuri and Greg were known as the Copper and Iron Walls. They say Zuri's defense is even stronger than Greg's.
Zuri's skin darkened, becoming the color of old bronze, his muscles seeming to swell. He was encased in what appeared to be living metal.
The copper wall, more like a paper wall, one I can tear through with a single strike.
You think your little trick with Greg means anything? You'll never break through my defenses. Go on, then. Get lost.
Zuri's sneer was laced with arrogance, but Zane paid him no mind. He was focused on the fight. The Sky Cloud sword spun in Zane's hand, a blur of icy light. The tip of the blade connected with Zuri's bronze shell.
That's all you got? Pathetic.
He shoved his palm forward, a wave of force that slammed into Zane's sword. The impact was enough to knock Zane back a step. The two clashed again and again, a blur of motion, a storm of sparks. Zane's swordsmanship, though honed in the dragon prison, was still far less refined than Zuri's. Yet for over 30 moves, he held his ground.
Flaming copper palm.
Zuri's arm slammed forward, his muscles straining against the metal casing. He aimed for Zane's heart. Zane's eyes narrowed. A flash of silver lightning crossed his vision, and then his stance shifted. A wave of chilling energy erupted from Zane, radiating outward, pushing Zuri back. The air around Zuri turned to frost, obscuring him in a swirling white cloud. Then, like a blade cutting through fog, the tip of Zane's Sky Cloud sword pierced through the haze. Zane's blade had punched through Zuri's seemingly impenetrable defense, carving a deep wound in his palm. The copper wall had been breached, the arrogance on his face replaced by shock and pain. The crowd was stunned. The man who'd been known as an impenetrable fortress had been wounded, and by a newcomer no one expected to pose a threat.
He actually wounded Zuri? That's impossible. And without even using any martial arts skills.
If his swordsmanship is this strong, I heard there was a talent scout from the Hall of the Holy Sword who wanted him to join them. This guy is a monster.
Penelope, watching from the sidelines, felt a flicker of something akin to admiration for Zane.
I can't believe how far he's come in such a short time. And I've been stuck in the Hall of Elixirs, neglecting my martial arts. He's not going to let me forget that. I won't let him.
Zuri, his face contorted in pain and rage, staggered back. He had been humiliated, defeated by someone he considered far beneath him. His pride, his confidence were shattered.
This isn't over, Zane. You've angered me beyond reason.
Zuri's body began to tremble. His skin grew darker, streaks of crimson blood appearing on his arms, his legs, his chest.
Gods, he's burning his blood essence. He's gone mad.
In a desperate gamble, Zuri had chosen to unleash a forbidden technique. He was sacrificing his own vitality, his very life force, to boost his strength. It was a dangerous move, a desperation play that could cripple him for life.
Zane, if you don't show your true strength, I'll crush you.
With a howl, Zuri lunged forward. He was a blur of red, his body radiating an almost tangible killing intent. This was no ordinary attack. This was the fury of a man on the edge of madness.
My true strength? I wouldn't waste it on you, but...
Zane didn't back down. He grinned, a dangerous glint in his eyes.
You're right. Time to show you what I'm really capable of.
The Sky Cloud sword, held in Zane's hand, began to shimmer. It was a blur of silver light, a phantom in motion. It moved so fast it seemed impossible, a contradiction of physics. Then in a heartbeat, the blade sliced through the air, leaving a crimson streak in its wake. Zane was gone. He reappeared behind Zuri, his sword whistling as it sliced through the air. Zuri crumpled to the ground, blood pouring from wounds on his arms, legs, and torso. His eyes widened in disbelief. He had lost. He had lost so quickly, so utterly. A silence fell over the crowd. They stared, mouths agape, at the scene unfolding before them.
Zuri, you're not even a match for me.
Zane kicked Zuri off the stage and turned to his next opponent, who stood in the center of the arena. A young man, 17, no older than himself, with a ponytail of fiery red hair and a scar that slashed across his eye. He held a 7-foot spear, its tip glinting with an ominous light.
That's Yanni, the man who's never been defeated in 10 moves.
Yanni looked at Zane, his eyes sharp and dangerous. The spear in his hand was no ordinary weapon. It was a genuine energy artifact. Powerful, rare, and in the hands of someone like Yanni, capable of devastating force.
I'm Yanni. If you can last 10 moves against me, even with my scorching fire spear, I'll acknowledge your strength. But few have ever made it that far. No one, besides Carson, has lasted even 10 moves.
He raised his spear, its tip glinting in the light, and slammed it down into the arena floor. The spear vibrated, the floor around it cracking, and the runes etched onto the spear flickered. Zane met his gaze, a flicker of icy light in his eyes. This was going to be an entirely different kind of fight. Zane and Yanni moved like phantoms, a blur of motion that defied the eye. Their clash was a whirlwind of speed and power. The crowd watched, mouths agape. Even experienced martial artists could barely follow their movements. The blows came faster and faster. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Zane's sword, a blur of silver light, drove forward. Yanni met the attack head-on, the scorching fire spear deflecting the blow, but the impact sent him stumbling back, a grimace on his face.
12 moves? I misjudged you. But this is where it ends. Time to see the gap between us.
Yanni had lost his reputation as 10 moves Yanni. He wasn't happy. He spun the scorching fire spear, its metal surface glowing red hot. A fierce gale whipped up, carrying with it a storm of sparks. The scorching fire spear burned hotter, a ball of scarlet flame coalescing around its tip.
Plum Blossom Spear.
The spear thrust forward, tearing a hole in the air. The flames roared as the spear transformed, multiplying, becoming 20 spears. Each spear a deadly phantom, striking with unerring precision. Zane, his eyes narrowed, met the attack. He blocked the first spear, but then the second, the third, the fourth. The spears were all real, no illusions. Plum blossoms, each a miniature inferno, rained down from the sky. And then Zane realized his mistake.
Oh no.
The scorching fire spear was a genuine artifact, while his sky cloud sword was a mere mortal blade. The repeated collisions had taken their toll. The sky cloud sword shattered. Zane's defenses crumbled. His eyes, however, held a cold resolve. He slammed his hands together, summoning a bolt of dark silver lightning.
Thunder Spear.
The lightning pulsed, forming a spear that crackled with raw power. Zane threw the thunder spear, its tip striking Yanni with blinding speed. A ring of silver lightning, 10 meters in diameter, erupted, centered on the spear. It crackled, pulsed, and ripped through the air. The thunder roared. Yanni, caught in the heart of the lightning storm, screamed. His clothes turned to ash, his skin blackened. The plum blossom spear vanished, but the lightning ring persisted, a storm of pure destructive power. When the lightning subsided, Yanni lay on the ground, scorched and barely alive.
Zane, he won. What kind of martial arts is that? He nearly killed him with a single attack.
The crowd was stunned into silence. Yanni, who had been thought unbeatable, had been defeated by a newcomer. Others were dumbfounded as the impossible had just occurred in front of their own eyes. However, the freshmen were all excited and overjoyed. After all, even as a newcomer, Zane had overpowered the person ranked second on the leaderboard of the Outer Disciples of Azure Dragon Academy. From then on, no one in the entirety of the Azure Dragon Academy would not know Zane's name. Nobody would dare to bully newcomers either. Zane, eyes cold but determined, stepped out of the arena. His friends, Barnabas and Wade, were ecstatic.
Zane, that was amazing. You're unbeatable. Even Yanni couldn't stand against you.
Zane smiled slightly. He knew that the reason his two friends had gotten into trouble was because of him. Penelope, her face a mask of disbelief and something resembling admiration, pushed her way through the crowd towards Zane. Barnabas and Wade immediately caught on and found an excuse to leave with a smirk, giving them a chance to be alone. Zane was speechless.
Zane, tell me the truth. Do you have a hidden mentor?
Zane shook his head.
No, I'm entirely self-taught.
Then how did you become so powerful in such a short time? I need to practice harder. I won't let you get ahead of me.
Xander immediately smiled to himself after returning to the Hall of Elixirs from the arena. He slowly walked over and grinned as he comforted Zane.
It's okay to lose, Zane. At least you now know where your talents lie. From now on, you must focus on the path of alchemy. I have some experience, so you can learn from me.
Zane was startled. He looked at Xander in a daze. Could it be that Xander thought he had lost after seeing him in such a sorry state? At this moment, Penelope couldn't help but burst out laughing.
Senior Xander, Zane won. He didn't just win, he won by a landslide.
Xander approached Zane, a mixture of surprise and confusion on his face.
Zane, you defeated 10 moves Yanni?
Xander was still struggling to believe what he'd seen. Zane, exhausted but exhilarated, nodded. It was true, he'd defeated 2 of the Azure Dragon Academy's strongest fighters. Xander's world had just been turned upside down. How could someone with such incredible talent for alchemy be so powerful in actual combat? It felt like an unfair cosmic joke.
The new generation is better than the old. I'm getting old.
He pulled out a storage ring and handed it to Zane, a faint smile on his face.
Here's the ground blood herb you were looking for. Took some digging, but I found it.
It wasn't actually ground blood herb, of course. It was demon-eating grass, an herb that grew abundantly around the Hall of Elixirs.
Zane, this thing is worthless. We have plenty of it growing around the Hall of Elixirs, and even more in the Hall of Spirit Cultivation. We even feed it to our demon pets. What do you need it for?
Zane, however, didn't care. He eagerly took the storage ring and inspected its contents. Sure enough, it matched the description in the divine art of the Great One perfectly.
Great! Thank you, Senior Xander. I'm gonna use this to cultivate a specific method. I couldn't start without it. Now, I need to isolate myself and focus on breaking through to the Foundation realm.
Zane's announcement sent a ripple of shock through Xander and Penelope. They had no idea he was already on the cusp of the Foundation realm. Zane left the Hall of Elixirs, heading for the Dragon Prison, where he planned to complete his transformation. He reached the cavern where he'd left the elemental panther. It was lying on the ground, its breath shallow, its fur matted. Its once bright eyes were dim with exhaustion. The panther, weakened by its injuries and still bound to Zeke, tried to back away from Zane.
Do you want to die? Because even without me doing anything, you won't last much longer.
The panther, a formidable beast in its own right, couldn't fathom submitting to a mere body-tempering cultivator. It was a matter of pride. The panther launched itself at Zane. It was fast, a blur of black fur.
3-star step, second stance.
Zane's form blurred, becoming 3 identical figures. The panther, caught off guard, missed its mark. It swiped at the ground, leaving a shallow scratch in the stone. The chase was relentless. Zane, a shadow of movement, danced around the panther, dodging every attack. The exhausted panther, its strength waning, finally toppled to the ground.
One last chance, Panther. Become my familiar. Submit to me.
The panther, defeated, gave a final whimper. It was over. Zane reached into his pocket and pulled out a scroll. It was covered in obscure runes, a sealing formation he'd acquired from the Hall of Spirit Cultivation. He bit his finger, allowing a drop of blood to fall into the scroll. The formation activated, sending a beam of light towards the panther. It merged with its forehead, leaving a faint mark. The connection was established. Zane now had control over the elemental panther.
Marvelous. You're elemental now. Here, have some healing elixirs and demon-eating grass. Rest up.
He tossed the panther, along with the demon-eating grass, into his spirit cultivation ring and turned his attention to his own breakthrough, the Foundation Realm. It was the first hurdle for any martial practitioner, the barrier between the ordinary and the truly powerful. To break through, one had to reach the pinnacle of the body tempering stage. And then, Zane's eyes focused on the swirling vital energy in his elixir field. His vital energy seed, now a dark silver sphere of pure energy, was the key. His vital energy surged, a wave of energy that battered the vital energy seed. Piece by piece, the seed's outer shell chipped away, revealing the raw power within. Day after day, the pounding continued. He consumed countless elixirs, pushing his body to its limits. And then, after a long and grueling battle, the final piece of the vital energy seed shattered. The vital energy seed, now a radiant orb of dark silver energy, pulsed with the potential of a new realm. Zane had crossed the threshold. It had been almost half a month since Zane Martel entered the Dragon Prison to break into the threshold of the Foundation level. His single-minded focus had helped him reach the 9th and final level of the body tempering stage. He had successfully prepared the 5-element fragments to break through the cultivation level and dissolve his seed of vital energy, a feat only a handful of martial practitioners could achieve in their lifetime. Now that he had succeeded, he was about to experience the dissolution of his vital energy seed into the highly powerful and pure vital seed orbs. The 12 orbs of this vital energy would form a vital shield, making him infinitely more powerful. In his heart, he could feel a reckoning. The heavy silence of the room was broken by the crackling sound of high-grade vital energy as several fist-sized balls erupted out of the dark silvery light that appeared around Zane. These balls were made of pure vital energy and started floating in an intricately synchronized motion within Zane's energy field. The vital energy orbs glowed with a blinding silver shine as they came out from Zane's vital energy seed, one after another. They kept appearing, and the mysterious process didn't show any signs of slowing down. The vital energy orbs should have stopped at 12, but didn't. Instead, their intensity and numbers kept growing. Zane could feel his hair stand all over his body. A sense of confusion appeared on Zane's face, followed by a deep frown. Sitting with his eyes shut tightly in the Dragon Prison, he started to become deeply worried and flabbergasted, struggling to control the energy and the process that had now engulfed him.
What the hell is happening? This is not how it's supposed to be.
The never-ending stream of vital energy orbs kept emerging out of his vital energy seed into the room, swirling over him even more fiercely. Finally, it ended. 36 balls of vital energy orbs had emerged out of his vital energy seed and now circled Zane's vital energy field. It was extraordinary and highly unexpected. Zane watched them with bewilderment and shock.
36 orbs. 24 more than all other practitioners who had ever broken through the Foundation level. I didn't know this was even possible. Not just double, but 3 times more than usual. I will have more vital energy to draw from than any opponent in future battles.
So many vital energy orbs meant that the chances of Zane being hurt, exhausted, or dead in any future battle were significantly reduced. As he opened his eyes, he could see a dark silver glow emanating from his body, and the last vestiges of any dark and negative elements were swiftly filtered out from his body and energy field. He could feel his body being replenished with the vital energy surging in every nook and cranny. Moreover, he recognized a marked upgrade in his body from his previous body tempering stage. Zane focused on restraining the surge of vital energy in his body and succeeded. After a few minutes, he brought it under total control with his willpower. His body had now turned into an abyss of energy, and it was impossible for anyone at the same level as him to fathom the depths of his powers. As Zane sat in his room enjoying and admiring his newfound powers, a thunder cracked above the dragon prison. A terrifying whirlwind emerged above its sky, and a fierce tornado started raging as dark clouds gathered to cover the starry night sky. The dark clouds continued to gather more densely, forming a sinister vortex over the dragon prison. Then suddenly a loud roar came out of it. As Zane listened closely to the thunder outside, a loud booming and ancient-sounding cry emerged from the dark skies. The terrifying voice, if one could call it that, made the blood in his veins boil, and he felt as if a mountain had descended upon him. Zane's chest began hurting, his heart could barely absorb the pressure it had suddenly come under, and each breath he took became tremendously painful. He could almost taste the blood that threatened to spew from his mouth. Even though it seemed that the voice from the sky would be his end, it didn't harm Zane's physical body adversely. His head became heavier as he tried to stay conscious under the celestial pressure he felt. He lost his consciousness for a brief moment, but quickly came back to his senses. Surprised by the events, Zane observed that a huge root-like structure had appeared from the sky vortex above, and from it descended an ancient-looking, mighty, and deep silver dragon head. In the moment that the dragon head appeared, the entire dragon prison dissolved from his view, and he found himself surrounded by violent sandstorms.
What the hell is this?
Zane clenched his fist to fight the fear that gripped his heart. His pupils contracted to a mere point as his limbs and bones creaked under the massive pressure of his surroundings. He couldn't bring himself to stand straight, and an unknown fear started to fog his sensibilities. As he looked up with great effort, Zane saw a dragon emerge from within the dark clouds and descend toward him. It was the 5-clawed silver dragon, its body covered in scales, each larger than Zane's own tiny body. Dark silver lightning flowed beneath them, making crackling sounds, falling on his ears like raindrops in a thunderstorm. As it neared, Zane could figure out that its size was bigger than the entire dragon prison itself. Just when Zane felt he couldn't take the pressure on his body anymore, a huge explosion boomed in the sky. The boulders around the dragon prison turned to dust in an instant, and the resulting gravel started to rise in the air, as if gravity had suddenly vanished for them. Zane, now utterly scared, sought to run away from the foreboding presence of the mighty silver dragon figure in the sky. Just then, the dragon set out a howl, so deep and so piercing that it shook Zane completely. He began shaking in fear. His body didn't follow his command anymore, and his mind became numb with shock. Covered in a huge swarm of lighting, the tail of the 5-clawed dragon suddenly began to turn gray. Slowly, as Zane watched, the tail vanished entirely, while the scales of the dragon started falling from its body one by one. The majestic 5-clawed dragon, which had loomed majestically in the sky a few moments ago, began to fade away and was reduced to a huge skeleton. An all-consuming burst of energy erupted from its dying form, forming an aura of energy so ferocious that it could kill Zane in an instant. However, before he could even try to move to safety, the huge skeleton in the sky and the aura vanished, leaving behind only a dragon head figure in its place.
This can't be true. Is it the sea engulfing curse?
Zane's eyes suddenly lit up in an epiphany. He almost cried out in amazement.
Yes, it's definitely the sea engulfing curse. I remember when I cast the curse. The mouth of the vortex that appeared in the sky. It was not as huge, but the energy and the aura were exactly the same. Was this 5-clawed silver dragon I just witnessed the ultimate devouring dragon?
A sudden wave of exhaustion overcame him once he realized what had happened in the past few minutes. His mind and his body both felt numb with the overflow of energy, diminishing his ability to discern between reality and hallucination. As calmness returned to the sky, where a lone dragon-head figure now floated solemnly, the dragon prison returned to its normal state. This event confirmed a few things to him. One, that the dragon figure which had just appeared was surely somehow related to the form of the Elder Wyvern. Secondly, just as the sea-engulfing curse technique could devour an opponent's entire bloodline and increase the curse caster's own innate talent, form of the Elder Wyvern could restore the dragon prison to its original form and appearance.
If what I just saw was real, then the spirit body must be immensely terrifying when restored to its original form.
After a few moments passed in deep contemplation, Zane took out a small red bottle that contained the ground blood herb potion. A strong and a deeply pungent odor filled his nose. Without undergoing the special treatment as prescribed in the Book of the Divine Art of the Great One, he would not have dared to use this potent spirit liquid, let alone for such a fragile thing as his eyes. He raised his head and carefully put a few drops of the liquid in his eyes. It felt strangely cold, and almost instantly a chill swept over his body. As Zane jolted back with the strange sensation in his eyes, he remembered that this was a long process, and he needed to persevere. With patience, he must carefully clean his eyes with the spirit liquid, and only when his eyes were completely purified would he finally succeed in recovering from this crazy experience. Half a month had passed since Zane began his journey to break through into the foundation level of the Heavenly Sword technique. Now completely purified, he had decided to come out. And as per the rules of the Five Spirit Sect, he could still be accepted as an inner disciple. To Zane, this was important. The difference between inner and outer disciples was stark, and outer disciples were not treated any better than mere handymen. More importantly, being an inner disciple meant that one could become an elder of the cultivation yard. He knew it and therefore vehemently desired to become an inner disciple. After coming out of the isolation in the dragon prison, Zane had clarity like never before. He bid farewell to Barnabas and Wade, who knew about Zane's successful venture into the foundation level, and decided it would be better to watch on the sidelines. They couldn't help but be amazed and envious of him when Zane graciously gave away his now useless marrow-purifying pills and golden essence pills to them in good faith. Barnabas and Wade had organized a grand banquet to celebrate Zane's achievements and see him off. Zane was no longer the person who had entered the dragon prison a month ago. People saw him with a mix of fear and admiration, the kind of looks only powerful kings and warriors solicit from others. According to the traditions, those who had broken through the foundation level must go to the Hall of Foreign Affairs to register their names and report their experiences to the training academy, where the elders of the intermediate level were. There he would be finally chosen by an elder as their disciple, either nominal or personal,